Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the Just Knickin' It Weekly Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen. I'm joined by Jerrell, Geoff, Klafter, Ajay. Today, we're going to talk about Summer League, specifically about some players and how they've played, how much we're putting into Summer League, who should, if anybody, deserve to be the 10th or 11th person in the rotation. And just philosophically, just how much should we be putting into Summer League, just given the fact that the Knicks are a championship contending team. I've watched one game. I've watched some post-game shows. I've followed the stats. And I've listened to Twitter, and you guys are just really, what's the new term now? Crashing out over what's happening in Summer League. I don't get it. I think for the past maybe 2 summers, maybe even 3, since the Knicks have become more relevant and become more championship contending team, I haven't paid too much attention to Summer League, but hey, I'm a woman of the people. So we're going to talk about Summer League today. We're actually going to put the phone number up if anybody wants to call in and talk about the players overall, talk about them in the rotation, talk about who stood out for you. You're going to have the opportunity to do that. Shout out to those that are in the chat early. JJ, Wayne Peterson, Geraldine MacGyver. Appreciate you, sis. Nostalgic Nick, David G. Yeah. All right. Well, first of all, how are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, what's good, Steph? Happy to be here again.
I'm hot.
You hot, you said?
Yes.
It is summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. It seems hotter than usual to me.
Nah, but other than that, you know who's not hot though? Our Summer League team.
That's for sure.
Because even the little, the little that I did watch, yeah, we don't look too good. It's not that many people stood out to me for what I've seen. Just a few. Yeah.
1-3 lost to Indiana today. I'll catch that game sometime this weekend on my down time. Geoff, how you doing?
Doing well. It's good to be on the stage with Jerrell again. It's been a minute. So I was glad to have the whole crew back together. And almost it's weird because it's like the low point of the summer as far as stuff going on. But it's good to have the band back together. But it's this summer league. Summer league's always tough to watch because it's like glorified pickup scrimmages anyway. And then when it's always guard heavy and so if you have really outstanding guard play, you usually do well. I think the year that we had Quickly and Deuce, together, we played Portland in the championship game. If I recall correctly, I could be wrong about that. But other than that, it's sloppy basketball. It's good to see your players get on the court, but I wouldn't draw too many conclusions or determinations. It's a small sample size. I do think that Tyler Kolek to spend a little too much time at the blackjack table still.
We'll talk about Tyler Kolek. Ajay, Hollywood. Whatever name you going by.
The Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Hey, some Knicks fan got the Summer League blues. I'm feeling green. I'm looking green. I don't know why, but we're gonna roll with it.
Okay. All right.
Roll with it.
Let's just start with a general question. When you do look at Summer League games, what are you particularly looking for out of the players? Are you looking at them statistically? Are you looking at their skill level? Are you looking at their process? What are you looking at? Or are you just looking at the team itself and how the team functions and not individual players? Jerrell?
I look more for individual, like these players for the most part are pieced together, so I don't expect them to play like a good team, like the real team that we're going to have in the regular season. So For me, it's always individual. I picked a couple players that I tried to focus on when I do watch it, but for me, I just try not to overreact on anything because there's some summer league games I thought this dude's about to be a superstar, and he is not. When the regular season comes, not even a G League star. So yeah, I always try to keep the summer league, I don't know, with a grain of salt. Like I try, not that I don't want to pay attention to it, but I don't know. I just try not to overreact to it. But for me, it's individual for sure.
Yeah, Geoff.
Yeah, it's weird to think of it like this, but if someone balls out in the summer league, it doesn't really it doesn't amaze me by any stretch of the imagination because I think it's a lower quality of basketball in general. But if someone struggles in the summer league, I think that's more telling personally. Because if you're struggling in that atmosphere, it makes me unconfident that you're going to be able to perform when the lights get brighter and the competition is stiffer. Like if you can't get by, whoever the Nets were trotting out defensively, how are you going to get by the best guards in the league? And not that they have to do that on a regular basis. It's the end of the bench guys, but I think it does speak volumes about where we're at, and I think it does tell us that we have serious considerations to make with that final open veteran minimum roster spot. I think it becomes more important based upon what we saw in these 4 games so far, with one more coming, than maybe we would have. I didn't instill a lot of confidence in me that, oh, well, we've got these guys. They seem like they're at least another year away for the most part. Although we'll get into some of the specifics. There were some good performances that I do want to note, but for the most part, the overarching thing that I got is these guys are just not ready. You're muted, Queen.
Let me know if you can hear my AC in the backs. Ajay, when you look at summer league, what are you focusing on?
So just like Jerrell, I focus on individuals, right? How each one of those guys doing, because listen, let's not kid ourselves. They're not really a team. They're a bunch of guys assembled to play a couple of games. Even the coach. Not that the coach is not a real coach, but he's not a real coach, right? He's just guiding the young players. Trying to find out what they got, right? Trying to get them to showcase their talent, right? And I think they understand that. And these guys, and by saying that, they less of a team. Less of a team than what we have, for instance, in the G League, right? But the point of the summer league is really to showcase your talent. And if you can't do that in the summer league, then I think you have a problem. All right. The other thing I look for is progress, right? So you have guys that this is their introduction to this professional world,
right?
Okay, and you have guys that like Kolek. That's his second year. Is Margin Beauchamp, that might have been his 3rd or 4th year, in the league. So you got to see where these guys, how they play. Also, you have to factor in how long they've been around, how long they've been in the league, and you can't compare. You got guys who are for the first time playing in the NBA setting. It's even though it's really not the NBA, but they're getting a little bit of the NBA because some of those players are 2nd year or 3rd year player. So, you gauge all that together and you look at the individual talent and how they perform. Okay. Nobody really impressed in the Knicks. I didn't watch the games in their entirety. So, but the little bit that I watched, there's a couple of guys. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later during the show, but it's basically individuals showcasing the talent and trying to get a spot with the elite. And elite, by elite I mean the league. So yeah, you expect those guys to put their best out there, even though it's the summer, and their best is not the great compared to the other stuff that we're used to, but with that level of competition, their best should still shine if they're really good.
Yeah, I agree with all 3 of you. I'm looking for individual skill level. I'm looking for can this player shoot off the dribble? Can this player attack a closeout? What's this player's ball handling skills? Are they able to defend? I'm really looking at their skill set and seeing, what they can possibly bring on the next level, even if they're not ready. I do understand that sometimes you don't look as good when you're unfamiliar with the players you're playing with. I know Kolek was getting a lot of flack for turnovers, but some of those turnovers was players not coming all the way to the ball, and so it was picked off and they went the other way. And to Jeff's point, or was that Ajay's point, growth. If this is your second year in summer league, I'm expecting you to look like it, right? And not look like this is your this is your first time. So yeah, I don't really look at the team per se, because particularly this team, I mean, maybe 3 of them played together last year. I know McCullar was was hurt. So I'm looking for progress. I'm looking for skill set, and I'm looking for I'm not really looking for anybody to contribute this year. If they're a really young player, like maybe Beauchamp, who played, with Milwaukee, and he looked, I think it was one game where he didn't look that great, but most of the games, he looked okay. Like he might be able to give you some good minutes, but we'll talk about Kolek. So I'll leave it. I'll leave it there. We'll talk about Kolek separately. Somebody wants to know what's Adre's address so they can get him a new camera. Appreciate you, DPZ1841. That might be the model number to a website.
He's in the camera business. It takes everybody, right?
JJ says none of them really look ready. Yeah. We're Knick fans, so overreacting is what we do best. I guess my question is, and this is to the chat as well, what was the expectations for Summer League? Like, did you go into Summer League expecting that you were going to see whether or not a player or players would be in the rotation? Like, was your expectation of finding a rotation player on this Summer League team? Jerrell? Fine. I meant to say Geoff, but
it's all. No, absolutely not. I didn't think anybody would be a rotation player coming off this team. If anybody, maybe Hukporti, if Mitch go down, if we still have Mitch going forward,
right,
with the extension and everything. But yeah, Hukporti to me is by far the most ready. He played the most minutes out of everybody last year, especially before he got hurt. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Hukporti, and that's about it. Like I like McCullar. I really think he's really good. I think he would have been a lottery pick if he wasn't hurt last year. Long as he works on his shooting, he can definitely get minutes for us in a pinch. Like I think he's going to be situational, just like you said earlier. Other than that, yeah, I don't see anybody getting minutes not on this team. Like we're at the point now that we're too good for anybody else to get any minutes on this team.
That's a great point. And maybe it's who, forget getting in a rotation, who can provide us situational minutes if needed.
Right.
Geoff?
I think the easiest way to say it is there are 2 distinct plateaus. There's the plateau where you have Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele and those folks in the rotation. They're up here, and then all of these second-year guys are clearly showing they're far below the level of those other guys. And I was hoping to see a little bit more growth from all of them. I actually didn't mind what I saw from Hukporti. The Summer League's not a big man's game, and I thought he comported himself pretty well. Just because of our roster situation and our lack of fives, I think he's the guy who has the biggest pathway to minutes for everybody that played anyway. And he kind of showed that last year. And the encouraging part with him is he's coming off that injury, and I didn't notice any ill effects from the injury. I didn't notice he was a step slower because of the injury or anything. He looked like Ariel Hukporti to me. And so I kind of think that he, you know, of the Summer League guys, and there's another couple I want to shout out later, but he's the guy who really stood out because he's probably the best of that group. He's probably in the S tier of that lower plateau, but the gap between these guys who are playing in Summer League and the rest of our guys on the roster is Grand Canyon sized.
Yeah, it definitely appeared to be that. I think another thing we should keep in mind is that the Knicks prospects, these were not like first round draft picks, you know, like when you saw Hollis, I believe, from Detroit, and you just saw how he played. He was the 5th pick, you know, in the draft. And, you know, maybe Kolek had a first round grade. I know a lot of people, including Jerrell, felt McCullar had a first round grade, but he's coming off of an injury. I think you have to take that into account as well, because one of my things was, well, you know, these guys are playing with teammates that, you know, this team has just been thrown together. That can throw you off a little bit. Then you see Hollis out there hooping with, well, he's making it happen. But again, he was a better prospect than the players that the Knicks drafted. Ajay, what were your expectations of Summer League? Did you expect to find a diamond in the rough? Did you expect someone to shine and make a case at least for being in the rotation?
Yeah, not so. I was expecting to find. I was not expecting to find diamond in the rough, but yes, I was expecting a couple of guys to shine. I was totally disappointed in Tyler Kolek. I really feel like he should.
Why don't we talk about Tyler Kolek?
You might as well. I mean, he, you know, last season, I mean, you know, he showed, you know, the few minutes that actually, starting with last summer, he showed that he had something that, you know, if given a chance or if given opportunity, even with his small frame, his small size, that he would have been able to get some minutes. But I feel like over the last 4 games, he did not make a case to, you know, if I'm the coach, to say, you know, I want to give this kid some minutes. So now he's just going to have to, you know, like just beat everybody, ball out in practice, you know, for Coach Mike Brown to say, you know what, maybe you should give him another look. But based on the summer, like, he didn't make the case. Okay. Other guys, you know,
no. Let's stick with Kolek.
Let's stick with Kolek. Okay. But
how much do you think Kolek played last year? So we saw him play in an NBA game, and we saw him have some bright moments in the NBA game, hold his own, in the games in which he played. You know, maybe there was some uneven performances, but for the most part, he looked like, you know, he would develop into a good NBA player. Then he goes out the first 2 games, at least in Summer League, and just does not look great at all. He rebounded in game 3. I'm not sure what he did today. Looking at the box score, it seems like he did okay, but the box score doesn't always tell the story. Do you think Tyler Kolek is being exposed in Summer League, or do you think it's just his performance is just impacted by playing with players he's not familiar with? And you should, East Blue Drew, apologize for getting on me about these young kids. No, I'm kidding.
That's a very good question you just asked too.
Yeah.
Tyler Kolek, like I don't know. I didn't expect him to come into the league and be Mark Price all of a sudden. Like I always thought he was good. I thought he was good in college, but I thought he was good. I didn't think he was going to come in and just get minutes automatically. So I don't know. My expectations for him, like he's still where I thought he would be. I didn't think he was just going to come into the league and just become Jalen Brunson's backup all of a sudden, you know, as soon as he get there. So I don't know. To me, he's still building. He's still grinding, and he might get there next year, but he might need to be in the G League a little bit more. But his shortcomings, I think, he got to work on those turnovers. Like that's pretty much it for me. When it comes to shooting, he can shoot. When it comes to passing, he obviously can pass. I don't think he's ever going to be a good defender. As long as he works on his turnovers, I think he'll be fine. But until then, he just has to develop more.
Yeah, Geoff, what are your thoughts on? I know you did a series in your newsletter. For those that are in the chat, the replay game, the link to Geoff's newsletter or blog, daily blog, is in the description. He did a recap of every Knicks Summer League team, and he's going to do one of the Indiana Pacers games. So watch out for that. So probably out of all of us, he's probably the most informed on Summer League this season. Anyway, what's your thoughts on Kolek? Do you think he's been exposed, or do you think this is just growing pains? And listen, there's a second year slump, sophomore slump. So they say. Your thoughts on Kolek?
I'm kind of torn because part of me says that, with the role that I think he would excel in, he kind of needs to have better players around him because he's not the explosive athlete who's gonna, you know what I mean? He's not like this electric guard, like a Dylan Harper, for example, who can, who's gonna do. So from that standpoint, I can kind of see some players you put them in, like, I remember when my boys were when my oldest son was in junior high, he would play up with the varsity and he would look really good because he was usually on the court with 4 other varsity players. And then you would bring him back down and he's playing on his own team and guys of his own skill level. And he didn't necessarily look as good as he did with, with the much better players. And I think that maybe a little bit of a case with Kolek here is that if you're not asking him to do as much, if he's just kind of one, the other 4 guys are kind of carrying him along, that may be more of a fit for him, just kind of how he is as a player. But I think the sample size is small, but from what I've seen, his shooting, he really struggled. His turnovers, he really struggled. He didn't, other than he had first half against Brooklyn, he had a really good first half. But even in the second half of that game, he missed like one. I mean, he was like 1 of 8 in the second half, and he didn't shoot the ball very well today. And so you're talking about a guy who's not a really good defensive player. He's undersized. If he's got a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio and he's not shooting the ball effectively, how can you rely on him? How can you depend upon him to be in your rotation? And the answer is that you can't. And so I think with him specifically, what it showed is we've got to get somebody in here who can fill the role of backup point guard minutes because he is not ready.
Yeah, I felt that before Summer League even started, that he should be the 3rd point guard, not the 2nd. And he can definitely get minutes situationally, or even if you want to give him 5-6 minutes a game. This is kind of how I felt about all of them. You're not really counting on them, but you're giving them some minutes. And, if they're not playing well, you can easily reduce their minutes and give more to someone else. But to put them in a role where you're really counting on them game in and game out, I thought that was a bit much to ask. And I think we're seeing that in the Summer League now. Like, if Kolek is the backup to Jalen Brunson, to your point, though, maybe he'll do better because he would be surrounded by 4 other NBA players. His role would be really, focused in terms of distributing. Maybe he would do better. But I think the Knicks, as championship contenders, you don't want to be wondering how Kolek would do. You want to know that you have an established backup point guard or ball handler, and then bring Kolek along and give him some more minutes. Geoff, you wanted to say something? I mean, not no. Jeff. Jerrell, you wanted to say something?
Not about Kolek. Are we going in like the other like individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna go to. Do you think Kolek should? What do you see him next season? Situational or 5-6 minutes a game?
Kolek? I think Kolek will be in the G League again, and or situational. I don't think he's gonna. He can't be our backup point guard, so I don't see him getting any minutes.
Yeah,
100% agreed. He's absolutely situational. He didn't show anything in summer league that shows he belongs on the court with a championship contender.
Agree.
He played better in game 3. Did that? When
he
you
shot the ball well in the first half, but his second half he went back to what he was doing in every other game. So I mean, yeah, he had good numbers, but I think he had ended the game with 25. 22 of those were in the first half. I mean, he was hot in that first half, but that was the only real good shooting half he's had in 4 games in the summer league. So, you know, especially for this Knicks team, we need consistency from the guys who are coming off the bench. You can't just wait for a guy to get on a bender and then the rest of the time he's not doing any of the other things that we need, especially, you know, when he's really limited to he's not positionally versatile, right? The only position he can play on the court is point guard. He's not even like Deuce, who's undersized but can guard up. That's not Kolek. So if he's not providing the shooting, the scoring, and the playmaking, then, you know, you got to throw him back in the pot. He's not ready. He's not ready to eat yet.
I understand the scoring part. I'm not really focusing on Kolek scoring. I get it that he needs to, you know, hit some shots to keep, you know, the defense honest. But I guess my question to you, Geoff, is did his process improve over the course? Because the box score doesn't really tell you the story. Like somebody can score 30 and their process could be terrible. And then somebody can score, don't shoot well, but their process was good. They just missed shots. Did you think his process improved over the course of the summer league?
I haven't been impressed with his process in any of the. I didn't get to see today's games, but I wasn't impressed with his process in any of the 3 games. I thought that the difference in game 3 was he made shots in that first half, and the rest of the time he didn't. But I actually didn't. You know, one of the things that I liked about the concept of Kolek in my mind is a pass first point guard, sets everybody up, gets everybody in position to score. And you saw a little bit of that in game 3 where guys weren't making shots, and I guess you could say sometimes they didn't catch passes or whatever. But one of the things I liked about Kolek last year is his passes were on point. He got people the shot in their shooting pocket, like right where they needed it to be. I hadn't really seen that from him in any of the games, and maybe he's trying too hard. That sometimes happens with a young player, especially like they're almost over exerting themselves instead of just being relaxed and playing the game. And then you have one bad game, and then you put even more pressure on yourself. And then who knows? But I don't want to make excuses for him. I mean, this was an opportunity for him to shine and display his talent, like Ajay said, and he didn't really do that, in my opinion. So I thought he looked rough, and I didn't think the process was particularly good. And like I said, my conclusion is we need to find another point guard, even if it's a Corey Joseph type. We need to get somebody in here. Emergency, you can plug him in, and you can play him on a regular basis. Not a long time, but 10 or so minutes, because Clarkson is not a point guard, and neither is Deuce. So those guys are, going to get most of their minutes at the 2 and the 3. So, I don't have confidence in what I've seen from Kolek that, yes, he's ready to step up into the rotation. And maybe some people disagree based on what they saw. But from my eye, we've got to get somebody else in here with that last spot.
Jason Benjamin seems to disagree. He thinks that Kolek with the bench squad would definitely work. So Kolek, Deuce, Clarkson, Yabusele, and Mitch, or Hart and Yabusele, depending on Mitch may start. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things, and we'll when we break down the minutes, when we do the minutes show, it's only but so many minutes to go around. And if you're playing Kolek 5-6 minutes, that's 5-6 minutes that somebody else that's probably better than him is not playing. And then and it's risk reward, right? You may say, listen, even though the 5 minutes that the other player is not playing, he's better than Kolek, but we this is the long game. We're gonna give him this 5-6 minutes anyway. We'll see how the Knicks work that out. And I think Corey Benjamin had another one. Jason Benjamin, excuse me. I'm not too worried about Kolek. He played well with the starters last season. His defense and shooting looked so much better. In the summer league, you mean, or when he played with the starters last season? He is a classic point guard. And he also said McCullar and Daddy should see minutes this year, in my opinion. Kolek, Daddy McCullar, and Diawara, I hope I said that right, stood out in my opinion. I mean, honestly, I don't see any of them getting any minutes this season. Unless somebody is injured, unless it's garbage time, unless, one of the top 9 is just playing horribly. And you're like, you know what? Let's throw so-and-so in. Can't be that much worse than what's going on tonight. The Knicks talk about wanting to develop these guys, but yet they brought in 2 other strong bench players who are going to play. The Knicks are 9 deep. How many minutes is that 10th player going to get if he goes 10? Right? But if he does go 10, that's what, 5 minutes? I've heard some fans say, well, he goes 11 or 12. How much is the 10th and 11th and 12th guy if he does go 12, which I don't think he does? How much are they playing? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? So, they will practice more from what I understand. Mike Brown likes to practice. So maybe that's where they'll be getting a lot of their development and practice. But I would be shocked, other than Hukporti, who may get consistent minutes. I wouldn't put it's possible, but I wouldn't put my money on the rest of them. We shall see, because there's only so many minutes to go around. Jerrell, who did you want to talk about next?
I'm sorry. Can I say
sorry,
something?
AJ, you want to say something? Sorry.
So we got to make up our minds. 1 minute we talking about championship or bust. The next minute we talking about Kolek getting. Which is it? It can't be both. You know what I'm saying? And no disrespect, Kolek. He's in development. So in a couple of years, maybe he's probably gonna make a team. At the NBA level, but he's not part of a championship team. At least not what we've seen so far. And I'm not just talking about summer league. I'm talking about last season. Yeah, he's got a couple of good minutes last seasons, and very productive, impressive even, but it's very limited, very short chunks of minute. Okay. Cause this is in those chunks of minute, nobody's prepped. There was no scouting report on Tyler Kolek. When you become part of a championship team and you're playing, consistent, considerable amount of minutes, then they prepare for you. I don't see Kolek at the NBA level causing any damage to any team right now in the NBA. Okay. He's developing, so he's going to get better. Obviously, he is skilled. You could see that he could play ball, but he's just not there yet. He's just not there yet. So we can't be, trying to do both things at the same time. It's just not going to happen.
You know what? You bring up a good point. Let's just say he is the backup to Brunson. They're going to scout that. They're going to know, like, when Brunson goes out, Kolek comes in, this is what we're going to do. So you're right. It's really different when you have a definitive role on a second team, particularly as a point guard. G Fresh, appreciate you rocking with us. It's been a minute. Hope we get the most minutes. Cat will get into foul trouble, and that is true. That and not only that, Mitch may miss some games. Well, one, they may limit his minutes. I don't know if he'll still be on a minutes restriction. He's mostly played, 26 minutes is the most he's played in his career, 26, 27 minutes. So between Mitch potentially missing a game here and there, Cat getting in foul trouble, yeah, that third string center is super important. And if they go with starting a double big, that third string center is going to be important as well.
Yeah, well, that's why they got Yabusele. He could play the 5.
That's true. He could play the 5. That's a good point. Jason Benjamin, appreciate you again. It's an 82-game season plus 4 playoff rounds. Hopefully you can find minutes for these young guys and still win games. It doesn't have to be either or. I mean, listen, I agree that there may be, that's what I'm talking about, spot duty, garbage time. Somebody gets injured. Somebody misses a game. Yeah, I think there will be that those are situational guys, right? They're not a staple in your rotation. They're situational guys. But go ahead, Jerrell. Who did you want to talk about next?
The two most intriguing players for me was Diawara, the rookie out of France. I really like him, and Beauchamp. Like those are the two players, just athletically alone. I think we should go forward with them being on the roster. Like one has to be signed to a rookie contract, which would probably be Diawara, and I don't know, Beauchamp would have to be like on a two-way, because I don't even know how many spots are even left on the roster for them to 3.
Yeah, they have 3. No, you gotta have 3 two-way players.
Okay.
I think there's only 1 spot left on the active roster, if I'm not.
I think we have 2. We have the one we have one minimum contract, veteran minimums contract player that we can get, and then we can sign someone to the rookie exception, which is probably where you're going to see Diawara if he's not on a two-way, because we have to get up to the 14 guys, and I think we only have 12 right now. So I those are the 2 spots as far as my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are the spots that are available. And as G Fresh says, I think McCullar is definitely going to get one of the two-way spots, and Diawara might as well. So I kind of was under the impression that maybe they might use that the second-round pick exception, or whatever you call it, a spot on someone like James Najee, because they can put him for under a vet min contract, and it's a 5 guy that you can have break glass in case of emergency kind of a player. Not that he showed anything in summer league. That's not what I'm saying. I just we're thin roster wise at the 5 anyway, because Yabusele's a small ball 5 at best. I mean, guys like 6'8" or 6'9", especially if you're playing Mitch and Cat in the starting lineup together. Hukporti's the only other guy. So I think you would, probably want to have another big, somewhere in your back pocket. But that could be a two-way guy also. It could be that one of those guys gets the two-way. But I actually like Diawara. I'm with Jerrell. That guy seems like a dog. He learns to shoot the 3-point shot. I think he could be a rotation piece in the NBA in a couple of years. I really liked his hustle. I mean, he kind of reminded me of a poor man's Josh Hart. He's scrappy. He gets on the floor. New York fans just love him. I mean, he looked like a guy who was hungry to make the team. You know what I mean? He had that hunger to him, and so the stats aren't going to pop off the page, but you can't judge a guy like that just based on the numbers. He just, how some guys just look the part of a basketball player.
Yep.
Diawara just looks like a ball player to me. I don't know. I don't know what you guys thought, but I looked at him. I said, again, he's like a soup, right? You just put on the water and you just put it on the stove. He's not going to be ready to go. You're going to have to let it simmer a long time. But I think we can afford, with the depth that we have at the front end of the roster, we can afford to let some of these guys, play majority in the G League and do their thing. So I don't think that's the end of the world to have a guy like that in the developmental stages. And and if you work with them right, then I think I think you could have something down the line, and that's what you're looking for from these guys, right? I don't think any of us were under the delusion that these guys were just going to break out and all of a sudden we were going to have superstar, number 3 coming out of the G League or the summer league, or at least I didn't.
Yeah, and to your point about Beauchamp, given the young talent that, where should the Knicks put their efforts in terms of developing guys? Because, obviously the development, in my opinion, is not going to be a lot of minutes in an NBA game. I think the development will be practice. The development will be G League and whatever spot minutes they can get in the game. And I'm not sure why. I don't think the Knicks, I don't know if that was a Tom Thibodeau thing, used the G League as much. I mean, I do think they went down there, but some of them should have just lived in, in the G League. How much effort, energy, time do you want to put into Beauchamp, who's been in the league, I don't know, 3 years now, if not more?
It's going to be his 4th.
This will be his 4th year over some of the other young talent that the Knicks have. Being that they're a championship contending team, and they're not going to need these players for another few years.
I think a guy like Beauchamp is auditioning to play for somebody else. I honestly think that he's not a guy. He's a guy who's performed well enough that some other team is going to say, I don't think he's good enough where the Knicks can say, yeah, you definitely need to roster this guy when he's 25 years old. You don't know, you know what I mean? I don't see a ton of upside there. So I don't think he's shown a ton of upside. So I think he's maybe auditioning for somebody else who, like a Washington or Charlotte who, doesn't have championship aspirations, can afford to sign him to a low cost contract, give him more minutes and see what he can do and see if he does develop that way. So I just don't see Beauchamp specifically. I don't, just from a contractual standpoint, I don't see where he fits on this team, because I don't think he's getting the veteran minimum spot, and I don't think we can sign him to the exception spot. So unless he wants another 2-way deal, which I don't even know if he's still eligible for, I don't think Beauchamp is in our future plans, as opposed to a guy like Anton Watson, who you could keep in the 2-way spot, and I think he would be okay with that. And he's a guy who's 6'8" and showed flashes with his shooting, and former second-round pick of Boston. So I think that's a guy that is more likely to hang around those spots. Whereas I think Beauchamp, especially with his performance in the last couple of games, maybe some team looks at him and says, well, maybe this is a guy worthy of a veteran minimum spot that we don't, I don't think we're going to put him on our last vetman contract, because I think we need a more significant piece than him, not to disrespect him. But that's just I think he's just going to be a cap casualty, if you will.
See, this is why I love coming on here and having these talks, because Geoff completely just changed my mind on him, which makes sense, because it does make sense. Like, Beauchamp does seem like he's on the outside looking in compared to the other players that we're talking about, because McCullar and Pacom Dadier and Dearwaller, they're all wings. Well, Dearwaller is a 3-4, mostly a 4, but he could play the 3 too. So Beauchamp is on the outside looking in when it comes to who they've invested in the past couple of years when it comes to picks. So yeah, that makes sense.
That's the word I was looking for, investing. The Knicks want to invest in. Yeah, I agree. So, Ajay, anybody before? I want to talk about McCullar.
Let's jump right into McCullar.
Yeah, I think he scored 30 points in game 3. His shooting has to come around. I just like, when you look at the box score, as Ron, who's in the chat, will say, you get those ancillary stats from McCullar. You know, a few rebounds, a steal, handles the ball some. Thoughts on what you've seen from McCullar in summer league? This was against Boston, I believe.
With the 30-point game.
He got shut down after that with
like
a nasal contusion or something weird injury.
Yeah.
He didn't play after the Boston game, but I think he scored a bunch that game. I don't think he had a bunch of ancillary stats that game. I think he killed it from the field, but I don't remember him having this. What was his stat line?
He had 30 points, he had 2 steals, he had 1 assist, he had 4 rebounds, shot 90% from the field, 10 of 15, 90% from the free throw line, 10 of 15 from the field, only 1 of 5 from the from the 3-point, from the 3-point line.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys ever since we drafted him, I think McCullar, is definitely a first round grade. Like if he wouldn't have got hurt out of Kansas, he would have been in the lottery. That's how well he played in college. He probably would have won conference player of the year if he wouldn't have got hurt. So
to Jerrell's point, they were a number 1 in contention for a number 1 seed when he got hurt, and they barely made the tournament once he went out. Isn't that right, Jerrell?
Yep, that is absolutely right. He was definitely one of the best players in the country at that point. And he might not have been picked in the top 5 or maybe not in the top 10, but I definitely would have gave him late lottery or just outside of the lottery if he wouldn't have got hurt. So when it comes to all of our players, I think he does have probably the most upside. Like he's the most talented. But I that's not me seeing like Paco and Dadier come up. I didn't know about him until last year, so I didn't see anything when he was younger. But McCullar, he can play. Like he was just injured last year, so even if he doesn't come around this year, maybe after this year when it comes to development, I fully expect him to get minutes on this team.
Yeah, in the first game, 13 points, 1 steal, 3 assists, 6 rebounds. 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Again, just 1 of 5 from 3. So the 3-pointers, his shooting he has to work on, and just 5 of 14 from the field. That was his that was the first game. But yeah, I just like that you just seem to get a little bit of everything from him, and let's see how it plays out. Anybody else that you want to talk about? You want to talk about Hukporti? Do you want to talk about let's see, Najee? Dink, was it Pate?
Dink.
Mm-hmm.
Dink Pate or Dink Pate?
Pate.
Oh, Dink Pate, yeah.
Pate.
Dink Pate, like I remember when he, his name first got out there, he was like one of the youngest or maybe the youngest player to sign like in the G League fresh out of high school or whatever. But I didn't really see much. Like I said, I didn't watch every minute of every summer league game. So from what I saw from him, he's obviously not an NBA player right now. But it has to do with age too. I think he's still only 19. So, he's like a developmental piece for me. Like he's not going to get any minutes in the NBA this year, regardless of who he plays for.
We'll finish.
Good guy to have on a 2-way deal.
Yep, that's true.
We'll finish him up, but we forgot about Dadier. But let's finish this up, and then we'll talk about Dadier. Forgot all about him.
The invisible man. Take home.
Anything else on
Dink Pate?
Yeah. No. All right. Let's talk about. Let's talk about what you've seen from Dadier. Did you see any growth in his game? Any growth in his process? Any?
See, he didn't play this. See, I watched a lot of today's game. He didn't play today's game. So what I've seen from him, even though it was minimum, so I can't say like I saw every minute of him playing too. To be honest, he looked kind of the same to me. He didn't seem like any different, like same body type. I didn't see him, he looks exactly the same as he did last year, but I still like his game though. But I still think he's in a developmental piece too. I don't think he's going to get any burn either. Maybe spot minutes, but not like regular rotation minutes. I don't see it.
What do you think is, and the rest of you can answer this as well. Do you think Daddy A has the most upside of the players who played in summer league as opposed to floor, right? I think Hukporti probably has the highest floor, but in terms of ceiling,
for me, in terms of ceiling, by far is Diawara.
Okay.
Like if you look at him, his ceiling can be like Pascal Siakam. Like he's 6'9", 6'10", can handle the ball. He played like a point forward role as he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
He's been playing in the pros since, like, I looked him up. Like, it's not like I knew that much about him before we drafted him, but he's been playing. He's been a pro since he was 16 years old, and he's only 20 years old now. So, yeah, I think by far the highest ceiling is him, just because of like measurables and athleticism and stuff like that. But Paco Mdadi, yeah, I think he can play though. Like, I really like his game too.
Yeah, I think he turns 20 pretty soon.
Something like that.
Ajay, Geoff, just thoughts on Daddy A in terms of what you've seen?
Go to the green room first.
Well, I mean, I think he obviously shows that he's got something, right? And we saw that last season also. He didn't get a lot of minutes, but we've seen him play. He's got something. But I think not this season, not this coming season, but probably the next season, he's probably going to be a more integral part of the team. But right now, he's just, he still needs more development. But he's definitely a skilled player. He can handle that. He can shoot. Even though he didn't have a great summer league. Dink is a new Cambridge. Yeah, but I think he's a player worth developing. Pacome Dadier. So there is something there. But in terms of the player, I think and McCullar to me is probably like if somebody can get a lot of minutes aside from Hukporti, it's probably going to be McCullar. Because he has an NBA game, right? He's, to me, like the little tweaks here, little tweaks there, and like, listen, he's not a great player, but he can give you some minutes ahead of Pacome Dadier, ahead of some of those other guys. So
Dadier seems to get hurt once he starts to play. I don't know.
Right. Jack?
I like Pacome, actually. I thought he did a decent job of the minutes that he played. The injury is unfortunate. Remember, this is the guy we used a first-round pick on, so he's guaranteed roster spot unless he gets traded. So, from that standpoint, he's kind of got a leg up on some of these second-round guys. He's a work in progress. I mean, I don't think unless OG gets hurt or something, I don't see him cracking the rotation on a regular basis, but he's shown some defensive chops, and I think with Dadier, with Diawara, and with McCullar, it comes down to, can they shoot? If they develop their 3-point shot, all three of them can work their way into being a rotation player in the NBA. If they don't, I don't think any of them will be. McCullar does some nice things. I mean, he, as one of the commenters pointed out, he was the guy who ended up bringing the ball up against pressure when Kolek was melting down against the Celtics. So that's a useful skill. And then, Diawara, I could see him being a Josh Hart type where can't really shoot the ball that well from three, but he does enough of the other things, and he's so long and big defensively that I think that he could develop over time. Again, he's not going to be ready this year, but he's worth investing in. It's worth taking the time. Let him develop slowly and move along, because these are the types of guys in the current CBA you're going to have one or two of these guys pop, because you need to have guys you can pay minimum contracts to who can contribute, because it's really the haves and the have-nots. These guys who make $8 to $10 million, I think those salary slots are getting squeezed away just because of the way that the CBA is. And so I think you've got to find the best teams are going to have to find similar production at a lower cost. And that's where, developing a couple of these guys into quality players is going to be necessary, because I really feel like not this year, but the following 2 seasons are going to be our above the second apron seasons. And so you're really going to need to find at least 1 or 2 of these guys to pop and become not a star, but become a viable rotation piece.
One thing, Steph, I did want to say before we get off of Pacom Dadier, one thing I do like about his game, the way he moved without the ball. Like I like the way he cuts. He seemed like he knows when to cut. I like him coming off screens. Like, I like his movement. Like, I like the way he moves. It seems like he knows what he's doing compared to some of the other dudes out there. But yeah, his movement skills, I like the way he moves. Like, he knows when to move in certain spots of the floor. It looks like to me. You muted, Steph.
Yeah. It would Dadier, who knows? Like, if you think about everyone that's, that will get signed to a rookie contract, 2-way players, those, if I had to pick 2 or 3 out of them, I don't think Kolek would be one of them. I think it would be Diawara, Dadier, and McCullar would be the 3 players that I think could really develop into really good rotation players down the line. And listen, Kolek and those other players can surprise me. Don't get me wrong.
Are you considering Hukporti already?
Oh,
on the other side?
See, that's what I was going to say.
Already. I mean, you can.
That's
argue.
exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, to me, I don't count him like one of the other ones. To me, he's already on the roster.
Yeah.
Like, he already shows that he could get NBA minutes, whether it's with us or somebody else. Like, he'll be a rotation player somewhere else, not just with us. So I don't even count him as one of the prospects coming up. That might be a bad thing, but I just don't.
Yeah.
Well, one of the keys also is you'll notice there's a common denominator in all of those players you just mentioned, Queen. They don't need the ball in their hands to provide you with value, right? In Kolek's case, because of his size, because of his other limitations, he has to be able to perform with the ball in his hands to be an effective NBA player. Diawara, you just get in there and scrap and get rebounds and play tough defense, which all look like they're within his skill set, and you're playable. Same thing for Hukporti. Set good screens, protect the rim, and you're useful, right? And McCullar being a wing, can cut and do some other things, not necessarily have to have the ball in his hands as much, can do those ancillary things, as Ron, who's with us tonight, which I think is cool, talks about all the time. And so I think that's kind of where it's like, yeah, if Tyler's gonna make it, he's got to show that he can be strong with the ball. And that's one thing we didn't really see this summer league, especially in the Boston game.
Yeah, and I also think the learning curve is harder for him because he's a point guard. And to your point, these other guys can come in, defend, pass the ball, move without the ball, cut, get a layup, and they provide value. Kolek, he has to be able to run a team, and it's just a different level. I want to talk about Hukporti. Let me just read Jason Benjamin. I appreciate all the super chats, Jason Benjamin. I appreciate you. We struggled all last year with young, athletic, tall teams. We have Dadier, McCullar, Diawara, and Hope to combat those teams. They need a few minutes, in my opinion. And also, Pacom Dadier, to me, has the highest upside, 6'10", 19 years old, that can shoot. He is the prototype wing in today's NBA. If he fits, we got our guy. If he hits, we got our guy for the future.
His shooting sets him apart from all the other people that we talked about. He actually can put the ball in the basket from out there.
I mean, he didn't shoot well statistically. His form looks good though. He didn't shoot well statistically last year. In the first game, he shot very well. He shot 61.5%. He took 13 shots. He took 8 of them. And that's with going 1 of 3 from the 3-point line. In the second game, he was 3 of 11, 27.3. So his form is good. Maybe it's just a matter of it falling, right? Same thing with Deuce, right? His first 2 years didn't shoot the ball well. His third year, it fell in place for him.
It's a longer shot too. I think people tend to forget that. So even in France, the Euro line is not as long as the NBA line. So I think it takes getting bigger and getting stronger and getting reps up. Even for guys who are good shooters in college and overseas, it a lot of times can take them a season or two to get the strength up and the reps, right? Because it's not just about getting stronger. It's learning how to shoot with that strength, right? Because sometimes if you're just stronger and you're shooting the exact same way, you're going to be long on all your shots. So there's a combination of those things that need to get integrated. And a lot of times you'll see it take 2 or 3 seasons for a guy who was a good shooter, and then comes to the league and struggles. And then all of a sudden he gets good. Now, some guys just, they have that range already. And I mean, Curry could always shoot. So, shooters are shooters, but, you'll have a lot of guys who kind of have to develop their shot and get stronger and learn how to shoot.
Yeah. Someone said, I just put it up that they thought Kolek had the highest upside. Okay.
See, one thing about with Tyler Kolek, it's not even his fault compared to like who we play in the playoffs and what I've seen in the playoffs, especially with Indiana and OKC. Like whoever's coming off the bench as the backup point guard, can you affect the game like TJ McCullar? Can you affect the game like Caruso? If you can't affect the game like either one of them, I would rather have somebody who can. Like that's not Tyler Kolek's fault at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like we're just not at the level that he would get minutes on this team.
Right. At this point, in terms of where the Knicks are in.
Right, like if he played for like Charlotte or if he played for like the Wizards or somebody who can just get him on the floor and just develop and play at the same time, somebody that don't expect to win, he can be an NBA player, but just not for this team right now, for me.
Yeah. I agree. Those 2 players, though, are 2 players I've always wanted for the Knicks.
The 2 players,
Caruso and
TJ,
always, especially TJ McConnell.
Yeah,
always wanted him on the Knicks.
If our backup point guard can't outplay TJ, what's the point?
Yeah. Hukporti, just thoughts on him in summer league. Thoughts on his role next season. I mean, I agree with you, Jerrell. I think he can get rotation minutes. I do see him as a high floor, low ceiling guy. I could definitely be wrong on that. He does set good screens. He's really, really active, energy type player. Again, I see him as a high floor, low ceiling guy, but I could definitely be wrong. Ajay, we'll start with you. Just thoughts on Hukporti, his role next season and his ceiling.
Well, his role next season, I mean, I feel like he's going to get some minutes ahead of all these other guys. Obviously, he played last season. He gave us some very, very good minutes last season. You can see the potential. And he's one of those guys, Queen, who's played professionally before he came to the NBA. So he has some training. Obviously not at the NBA level, in the other leagues, but it's not too far from that. You know what I'm saying? So his role, I think he's, especially even with Mitch being healthy, I think he's still going to be able to get some minutes, depending on what Coach Brown does, right? Because we don't know we don't know what the starting lineup's going to be. We don't know if we're going to have the 2 bigs to start the lineup, in which case he's definitely going to get plenty of minutes as part of the second unit. And even if they don't do that, I think, you know, he's going to get spot minutes, like somebody else mentioned before, because of Karl Anthony Towns' foul trouble situation that he gets into. You know, I'm not expecting that to change after so many years in the league. He's going to be who he's going to be. So he's going to get in foul trouble, and there's going to be a lot of time where coach is going to have to call on Hukporti to come to the rescue. And I expect him, you know, he's going to play, you know, regular NBA games, regular minutes, not consistently, but you know, he has to stay ready because he's going to be called upon to help the team out. And God forbid something happen to Mitch, you know, health wise, he's going to be thrown in there as part of the rotation, as a regular part of the rotation. In terms of his ceilings as a big man, I think like, not a ceiling. You know who he reminds me? He reminds me of DeAndre Ayton. Not that that's his ceiling, but he kind of played like him. A lot of times when I watch him play, he reminds me of the first couple of years of Ayton. So you know,
the way he moves and stuff, that makes sense.
The way he moves, yeah, he reminded me of him a lot.
You're muted, Queen.
Geoff? Or let me go to Jerrell, because I know you said you had to.
Okay, yeah, I'll roll out after this. Well, Hukporti, I think, like you said, high floor, low ceiling. I don't think he's going to be an all-star. I don't want to put, you know, caps on him or anything. But yeah, I like him. Think he can work on being a better defender, stay out of foul trouble. Mm-hmm. One thing I really like about him is it seems like, at least for the summer league so far, like I said, I didn't watch every minute, and he didn't play today, but I did see him play. I think either in the first or the second game, I saw him play a little bit. Like his touch around the basket, like he has a nice little soft touch around the basket that I really like. We don't have, you know, we haven't seen that much, especially since we've gotten Mitch. So he's by far not the defender Mitch is yet, but you know, like you said, high floor, low ceiling. I think he's going to get minutes. Like he's going to be our third center. I don't expect Mitch to play all 82 games. I don't expect Cat to play all 82 games. Like the Cat that we had last year, he played more than I thought he was. Like Karl Anthony Towns is usually, I don't want to put the injury prone tag on him, but you know, he's had nagging injuries throughout his career. So between the both of them, yeah, Hukporti is definitely going to get minutes, and you know, I see the upside. Like I really like him.
You're muted, Queen.
I agree with that. Before we get to Geoff, Hope makes Mitch expendable, in my opinion. Offers a lot to team.
Okay.
I disagree, and you guys know how I feel about Mitch in terms of phenomenal on the defensive end, but right. Offensively and injury, that's a concern. Even with that, I feel much more comfortable with Mitchell Robinson as the backup center than I do with Hukporti. I just know what I'm gonna get from Mitch in the playoffs and tough situations, right? I'm not quite sure about Hukporti. And listen, that's part of the growth. That's part of the growth process. But I would feel much more comfortable with him playing as the third string center, and then maybe next year moving into that role, as opposed to him going into that role this season. It's a critical season for the Knicks, in my opinion. You got to lock down all these positions, in my opinion, with veterans, and you can have your first and second year players situational spot duty. But I don't think this is the season to have to count on those guys game in and game out. Geoff, just your thoughts on Hukporti this summer and overall?
Well, I actually think that the two hardest positions to learn in the NBA are the 1 and the 5. Like the 1, because you're handling the ball and you have to learn how to play against pressure and set up the offense, and the game is much faster. And the 5, because you have to learn how to call out defenses and learn not to foul, learn to stay down, how to help, how to rim protect. All of those things are not easy. And I think Hukporti is doing a good job on those things. And he's not, ideally, he's not Mitchell Robinson's replacement tomorrow. But I think the concept is that with another year of work, that maybe he is next season, and then you don't have to sign him. You can trade him. You can do other things with him. So I think that's absolutely the plan. But let's remember, Mitchell Robinson is a guy who's had a super positive impact, tipping the scales in multiple playoff series. We haven't seen that from Hukporti yet. That's not to say that he can't do that, but he hasn't yet. So before we say that he's better than Mitch, let's see him do some stuff in the postseason before we get to that point. But Jason Benjamin makes a good point. You can't trust Mitch to play all 82 games, and because of that, you're going to have to necessarily rely on Hukporti more. He's going to have his opportunities, and I think he's going to play well in those opportunities. But back to my original point was, he still has that learning curve. It took Mitchell Robinson about 2 seasons before he really wasn't lost on that end, where he could lock in and tell everybody where they need to be and make sure that he himself could stay on the floor and not get in foul trouble. That takes a learning curve in and of itself. And I think you saw, if you watched any of the Pistons last year, Jalen Duren, young, athletic, very talented center, struggled at times to stay on the floor because there's a learning curve that comes with that. And Hukporti had a little bit of an advantage because he played professionally before. And I think that showed him that little bit of professional work overseas vaulted him above Jericho Sims almost right away, even as a first-year player. And so I think that there's a lot to work with there. He's never going to be an all-star center. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-defensive center, to be honest with you. But I love the fact that he's working with Mitch, and he says, I want to learn how to offensive rebound like him. Like, I love the fact that he's tapped into he recognizes, hey, this is a skill that makes Mitch indispensable on the floor when he's here. I want to be able to do that because I want to be that indispensable guy who gets that second contract with this team, right? And so, ideally, he blossoms into a good backup center that you can pay $5 or $6 million to instead of 12 or 13. And that frees up more money to do other things. And so I'm really high on Hukporti, not as a starter or anything like that, but just as a guy who you can put in the rotation and not panic about, right? I think if you have him in the rotation, I'm comfortable with that. I think that he can hold his own enough, and that he'll be good in his minutes. Will he make some mistakes? Yes, but I don't think he's going to be a disaster when he's on the floor. So I think that's a guy we continue to need to pour our money into, because I think that he's likely to pay off as a rotation big moving forward.
You muted again, Steph.
He might be ready this year, but is that a chance you're willing to take in terms of, I know Mitch is up for an extension. We haven't heard much about it. I haven't heard any trade rumors either. So do you think Hukporti is up for that task now, or do you think maybe another year or so?
I think another season. I think I would like to give him another season. I think we kind of have that luxury if Mitch stays healthy, right? So there's no need to. I don't think we need to rush him. I think that we're better off if we don't and let his progression come about naturally. I half expect that he's going to get thrown into the fire because of foul trouble and injury, because I'm not sure Mike Brown's going to love Yabusele at the 5 minutes. Maybe he will, but I have a feeling that at some point either Cat's going to be hurt or Cat's going to be in foul trouble. Mitch is going to be hurt. Mitch is going to be in foul trouble. And you're going to see maybe even Yabusele and Hukporti play together. So, he's going to – he's not going to be a starter, but he could end up as a rotation player pretty quickly. Think about Precious Achiuwa last year. Like, I think he can fit. I think he fits right into that spot that Precious held last year, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
One thing though, we have to remember that he got hurt last year too. So
True.
Hopefully, never know what's going to happen in the future, but hopefully he's not one of those bigs that get nagging injuries too, because it was a leg injury, right?
I don't remember.
Right. So we'll see. All right, Steph, I'm gonna step off.
Appreciate you.
No,
I love y'all, man. I'll see y'all next week, God willing.
Sure.
Lord willing, the creek don't rise.
Man, speak to the chat, man. I'll let y'all. Peace.
See you, bro.
All right, appreciate you. Next, just really quick. Wow. Oh, that was a motorcycle. I thought that was my AC. I said, wow, it's really acting up.
I thought you were getting attacked by a monster truck or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Let's just revisit Mitchel Robinson and Mikal Bridges extension, right? So there's been rumors that the reason, and who knows, these are reports, the Knicks don't talk, so we don't know what's true, what's not true, that the Knicks are holding off on an extension for Mikal Bridges until the Giannis basically confirms that he's returning to the Bucks. Like, as long as there's a slither of hope, the Knicks want to stay flexible. Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on that approach? Do you think the Knicks should just lock it down, or do you think that as long as that possibility is there, it's fine for an organization to, drag their feet, so to speak, on a Mikal Bridges extension?
Well, a couple things. First, I think I said in one of my recent articles that the Knicks holding out to see where the Giannis situation ends up is kind of like me holding out to see if the White House is for sale. Like, even if it were for sale, how am I going to acquire it, right? I don't have the funds to do it. Even if Giannis is available, the Knicks don't have the assets to pull off that trade this offseason. They might next summer, but I don't see any combination of players that makes sense for both teams. I mean, if you're trading Giannis, you're probably looking to rebuild at that point, unless Giannis just says, trade me and I only want to go to the Knicks, and they're willing to acquiesce to that demand, because I guess if he only has 1 year left after this, you can say, look, I'm not re-signing with whatever team. So it would have to be some grand collusion situation, which I don't think is, going to happen. So, but we don't really have to get those extensions done tomorrow or the next day. Like, there's not any hurry to get those, so it doesn't hurt us as long as it's not affecting the relationship with those individual players. I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's smart business, right? You hold off on that till you have to make that deal. I mean, you hold on to your chips until you don't, because nobody saw Luka trade coming, and there it went. And he said he only wanted to go to one place, the Lakers, and that's where, I mean, the Lakers are the only team Dallas wanted to deal with for whatever reason, because of that relationship. So maybe you fall into some lucky thing like that. I don't think so. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I doubt it. We're not that lucky as an organization, but there's no reason for them to rush the contract extension talks. And so I don't think they will. This isn't a team that is stupid about stuff like that, though. They tend to have a pretty good, like Brock Aller and those folks, they tend to have a pretty good feel about where the market lies for these guys. And if they're not comfortable with the situation, they make a trade, right? That's how Julius Randle ended up getting out the door. That's You know, we've seen several. We saw Emmanuel quickly, right? We knew that IQ and the Knicks were never going to come to a number that they were going to be happy with, and so he's a Toronto Raptor, and OG Anunoby is here in New York. So, you know, and it may well be that those are conversations that don't really get drummed up again until we get closer to camp, right? Because it's the summer. A lot of the front offices are just focusing on after summer league. It kind of is the dead zone for a little while until camp starts. So that may not be a conversation that gets really even considered much until we get closer to the season and training camp and those sorts of things, when, you know, those final roster discussions kind of, you know, materialize. But, you know, it is a big decision on what to do with those guys, you know, and if you're not going to bring them back, you need to find the right deal for them to get, you know, at least the same amount of quality back, if not better, you know, and you can package them together too. I mean, it's not like you just have to trade one for one. So you're muted again, Queen.
Ajay, your thoughts on Mikal's extension overall? If it is true that the Knicks are holding out hope that, you know, trying to stay flexible so that they can get in on a possible Giannis trade, or do you think the Knicks should just, if they're going to sell, re-sign him, lock it down, and let's move on?
Just like Geoff said, there's no reason to rush, right? And I don't think the Knicks are waiting for a possible Giannis trade either. They're working on their own schedule. If something happens before they pull what they pull, before they make their move, okay, it opens, you know, a door opens up and, you know, stuff like that. So then they'll analyze that. And, you know, we all know they have insider information that we don't have here in the public, right? So, but I don't think nobody's sitting around waiting for Giannis to make a decision to you know, in order to build their roster or secure whatever they have to secure. Like, they probably, maybe they're waiting out, but not specifically for him, to see what else opens up, right? I think it's a very long shot to get Giannis Antetokounmpo here. I don't see how that's going to happen. As Geoff mentioned, maybe he becomes available, but then how are we going to get him? Like, with what cap?
I mean, there are ways to get him. I think it comes down to whether or not Milwaukee wants what the Knicks are offering. I think it comes down to that. Like, you can find pieces that would work.
It would
but where does that leave the Knicks, and would Milwaukee want those pieces?
It would have to be like one of them very suspicious Luka Laker deal. Like, you know, like you only.
Well, let's look at it logically. The only player 1-for-1 that would work is Towns for Giannis, and I don't know that the Knicks want to do that. And any other deal besides Towns for Giannis, you're talking about sending off 2 to 3 rotation pieces in exchange to get one back,
right,
at the same salary. Well, how do you fill those roster spots? You know, in other words, you're going from 9 deep to 7 deep, which was the exact same problem that we had last year. And Giannis isn't the picture of health either. So, you know, I don't think that the Knicks are like, you know, chomping at the bit to get rid of Towns anyway. But so that's why I said I'm not really sure. Like, I could see it in the following summer, because then you have a couple of draft picks. You could trade the 2026 pick. You could trade the 2033 pick, I think, becomes available at that point, unprotected, along with the last of our pick swaps, and that plus players. And then that deal makes more sense to Milwaukee than just a package of players. Now, is it possible that we could send some of our other players elsewhere and they could send draft picks to Milwaukee? In theory, yes, but who's going to be giving up multiple draft picks for Mikal Bridges at this stage of the game other than us, right? I don't think anybody's going to be giving 3 first-round picks to get Bridges on their team, or Josh. I don't think anybody's giving up a first-round pick for Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson. So those are the kind of fungible salaries that you're dealing with, unless I guess you could deal OG. And but again, is someone wanting to give up a bunch of first rounders for him? I don't think so either. So I just think it's difficult to put together, and maybe that's something I'll explore, is the different possibilities. And I've been thinking about making an article about that. So if that's interesting to you guys, I could do a breakdown on all that.
You can. I also wouldn't underestimate whether or not the Knicks would trade Towns for Giannis. I mean, you can argue that Giannis is a better fit for Brunson than Towns is. I should say. Now, with the connections Towns has with Worldwide West and Leon Rose, maybe they don't do it. But let me tell you, my experience with this front office is that their relationships may bring a player here, but they have no qualms over trading that player if they feel it's going to make the team better. You know, DiVincenzo was out the door, and I'm sure there's some other examples that are escaping me right now. So they brought Towns in, they like him, but if Giannis comes up and he's available, I wouldn't be so quick to say that the Knicks won't make that trade. They might. Keith Turner, I would trade Cat for Giannis in a New York minute. East Blue Drew, I would do it. As soon as Mike Brown called out Cat, he's gonna want him gone. Nostalgic Nick says Cat is staying. We'll see. Ajay, what you want to say?
I was gonna say Cat's about to have the best season of his career.
He already had the best season of his career. I guess better than that.
Under Mike Brown, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not even about Cat though, because once you get into the playoffs with Cat and Brunson, I mean, it's more than just Cat having good games. It's just as a team,
Does Milwaukee say that Towns is the piece that they want for Giannis, though? That's the other question, right? It takes two. Does Milwaukee want to be in the Karl Anthony Towns business either? Now, he is an All NBA player, so from that standpoint, at least they would be getting back another All NBA player. But again, if you're moving on from Giannis, you already traded for Miles Turner? Does a Turner Towns front court make sense? Maybe it does. You play him at the 4. I don't know. I just. To me, in my mind, if I'm Milwaukee and I'm dealing Giannis, it's to start over and accumulate assets and first-round picks, and I think you could get that kind of a deal for Giannis from a team that has that, like a Brooklyn or Oklahoma City, even, or somebody like that.
Some teams don't want to start over, and they're not. So if the front office is making a decision to trade Giannis, and they said, listen, our window is closed, we're starting over, we're gonna trade Giannis, and listen, again, we're gonna start over. But if a player is forcing themselves out, that's very different. The front office may be like, we don't want to start over. We want to get back legitimate players so that we can still stay in the hunt. But I do agree with you, the Turner Cat pairing, I'm not sure how much that helps them. All right. Amani the Great, Minneapolis, what do you think of this trying to get a hometown discount? Because we are so close to the second apron, we can't keep both Mitchell Robinson and Bridges. Only way we keep. Listen, the Knicks are going over the second apron with either one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And they can sign both.
Right.
They can sign both. It's their players. They can sign both of them, go over the second apron. They don't have.
Fact, if you're already over the second apron, why not? Right. You might as well. Like, you don't have any other avenues really to keep or improve your talent. So if you're going to be over the second apron anyway, in for a penny, in for a pound. And the other thing is that you'll sign them to a number that makes them a fungible salary, because when you're over the second apron, the only trades you can make the money has to match exactly. So sometimes you want to have, and you can't aggregate salary in a trade. So if you wanted a player, you're going to have to be able to salary match. And so sometimes it's useful in that situation to have a guy who's got $13 million, $15 million, whatever you think the next Robinson contract is going to be. And whether you want to be in the Mitchell Robinson business, I mean, that's a decision the Knicks have to make too. And I think the organization is split on that. I think they love it when he's on the court and he's doing Mitchell Robinson things. They're very much on board with that because he is a game changer, but he's so unreliable that I think another part of the organization would just like to be off that number for someone who's more available.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to. Anything else on Mikal? I do want to touch on Mitchell Robinson a little bit. This is a tough decision the Knicks, the Knicks have to make. Yeah, this is a tough decision. Maybe Mike Brown puts him in he's talented. We've seen him in Phoenix. We've seen him with Brooklyn. I do think the role that Thibodeau had him in last year probably wasn't the role that suited him best, but it was necessary given our, the starting lineup he chose to put out there. I do think there's more to be had from Mikal Bridges, and maybe we get that under Mike Brown. Me personally, I think the Knicks are too top heavy. I just feel like most of their you only need 2-3 guys, and then kind of spread the money down to have like a top heavy team with 4 guys making 30, 40, 50,
My issue with Bridges is he's not a stellar point of attack defender at the 2 spot. And that's what this team really needs, so if you could, I don't know, maybe, send him to New Orleans for Trey Murphy III or somebody. I haven't thought about it. I'm just throwing a name out there.
Pretty tall, though. Is he a good point? I know he's a good defender.
I don't know if he is. I just picked a name out of.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't. I was just using an example, like somebody who's a similar level player, in my opinion. Similar salary, similar production,
right.
Young player still, whatever. I mean, if you have a better example, please throw it in the chat.
I love Trey Murphy. Listen, if you can get, because I just feel like, part of not getting everything you can get out of Mikal Bridges is because he's playing with Towns and Brunson. Like, can you get all of what you can? Is there enough room, enough touches on this team to get all you can get from Mikal Bridges? And then you have OG as well. So I just feel like you're paying $156 million if you give him the max, and there really isn't even room to get all of what he has to offer. And is that money better spent on a player that's maybe a notch down, more of a role? He's a role player too, but you get my point. Like somebody who's maybe just a 3-and-D guy, maybe a Trey Murphy. Let's say Trey Murphy made less money than him. A 3-and-D guy where you're going to pretty much utilize all of what he has to offer. If the Knicks can do that, that's the direction I would go in. He's just not going to get the usage to justify the contract, in my opinion. But I like him as a player.
I think that's something the Knicks are wrestling with. And I think that it's interesting because I think that when the Knicks acquired him, just judging by the price that they paid to get him, they kind of thought he was the finishing piece.
Correct. I agree.
I don't know that he's the right fit to be the finishing piece. Not that he's not a good player. I just don't know if he complements the other. And maybe he was a better finishing piece with Julius instead of Cat. I don't know. Because we made that trade shortly thereafter, and I think that has much to do with not having a 5 that they wanted to play as much as anything. But I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those players goes or both of them do. And I also wouldn't be surprised if both of them stay and, you know, and either on extension or I can't. If they don't get extended, I think they get traded, though. I don't think that the Knicks are going to play chicken with these guys in free agency because I think that's bad business and it's really risky. Now, they did do that with OG Anunoby, right? So it's not it's not unprecedented for this front office, but what we do know about this front office is they're very big on team control, right? And having as much control over the dominoes that they're going to play as possible. And so I think they're going to do everything they can to avoid getting in a situation, especially with two players who are, you know, big time rotation players. I think that they're going to make some sort of decision probably before camp, probably in September.
I would think so. I don't disrupting the chemistry to make a trade at the trade deadline. It would not be something I would like to see. I'm going to give this. Someone said this, and I want to give this question to Ajay. Real King, trading all those picks just to lose McCall is asinine. Is okay. Even if that was the case, do you double down if you feel like he's not a fit because you gave up, 5 draft picks?
It's not double down. You got to give it a real chance. Maybe one season under Tom Thibodeau, maybe they want to see something different. Maybe that was a factor in moving away from Thibodeau. You never know. Because he has a body of work. We've seen him play on other teams, right? So this past season was not one of his great seasons. So maybe they want to, it's not just doubling down, but actually give it a real chance. Say, you know what, let me insist because I know this guy. I know he get better out of this guy, and then listen, maybe it won't work and maybe they'll pivot and go somewhere else and say, you know what, that's when you don't double down, because when you've tried everything and then it doesn't work or it doesn't work the way you want, then you say, you know what, let's cut off our losses. Let's minimize our losses and just try to get something for him.
That would be great if he had like 3 years left on his contract, but they have to make a decision in terms of extending him, and I haven't heard anything about whether he's open to taking less than the max, whether the Knicks are offering the max, whether there's been any issues in contract talks, whether there have even been contract talks. I'm sure they have been. I just think they're in a tough situation. Anything else on McCall before we move on to Mitchel Robinson? Yes.
2 things.
Yes.
First of all, the picks that we sent to Brooklyn for McCall is a sunk cost.
Right.
You're not getting them back no matter what you do. So whatever you do that's in the best interest of the organization, whether that's keeping McCall or not keeping McCall. You're not bringing those picks back no matter what you do. So you have to go forward thinking. That being said, to let McCall walk out the door as a free agent for nothing would be organizational malpractice. You either have to lock him up or you have to send him somewhere for a tangible asset that's going to help the ball club moving forward. Those are the 2 options. And so, but we can't sit here and wring our hands about draft picks because the draft picks are out because they're already gone. They're already out the door. It's a sunk cost. You got to move forward and make the best decision for your team at the present time and moving forward. And sometimes those decisions are hard. Like the Phoenix Suns just paid Bradley Beal a lot of money to go play for the Clippers, right? And that's not an easy decision. So sometimes these are difficult things, but they made the decision that was the best thing moving forward for their organization. I'm not saying it was or it wasn't. Time will tell. But as far as the Knicks go, we have to let the picks go. They're a sunk cost, and we have to look at each individual transaction moving forward as how it helps the Knicks get closer to their goal of winning a championship.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's move on. Talk about Mitchel Robinson.
The ambulance is coming for him.
who was, missed a lot of games last season, but showed up in the playoffs for the Knicks. And I thought he played well. A lot of what he does doesn't show up in the stats. I know Keith Turner says what Mitch do, just rebound and that's it. It isn't hard to replace, but I think Mitch does more than rebound. I don't even think he's a strong defensive rebounder, quite frankly. I think he's a really great offensive rebounder. His pick and roll defense, his rim protection, like just his ability to switch, particularly last season when he lost weight. So I do think he brings more than just.
I thought his screen game was pretty good last year.
His screen game and his screening is as well. The limitations are the limitations, but I do think he's more than just a rebounder. But I think money matters, and I think what his role is going to be next season makes a difference in terms of in terms of him returning. I think his injury history is a part of it as well, in terms of whether they re-sign him or whether they trade him. I think when we think about Mitch, we think about Mitch at his best, and we don't think about the injuries. And so it's like, give Mitch, 15, $20 million, because again, we're seeing him at his best. But again,
or we see him as the injury and we don't see him at his best.
Right. Or we see him
we either do one or the other. We don't combine the two into one fluid opinion.
Exactly. A healthy Mitch this season. Mitch is going to have a career season. Remember, prior to the injury, Mitch was having a career year. I mean, we can say that, about Mitch. There was somebody else who also talked about it doesn't matter how many games he plays in the regular season as long as he's there in the playoffs. I think it does make a difference when you're talking about signing him to an extension, because you can't be putting that much money in somebody who's just going to play in the playoffs. Right? You want that player to give you something through the regular season as well. So I think both Mikal Bridges and Mitchell Robinson is a tough decision for the front office for different reasons. Ajay, just your thoughts on Mitch and the extension, what his role might be next season. I mean, if the Knicks can get Mitch for $8 million, fat chance. We're doing, but
you're not getting a pay cut. Someone would pay him more than that. He's going to get at least 12 to 14.
No doubt. Particularly given how he played in the offseason. So this might even be a situation for the Knicks to sell high. And this is not based on his ability. It's taking the injury risk into consideration. Ajay?
Well, maybe the team think he's going to, I mean, it's a gamble, right? That those guys stay healthy or not. I think Rich is going to be, obviously, first of all, I don't think he's going to be on a minute restriction, right? He's just natural, because the way the team is built, he's just normally not going to play a ton of minutes because they have other bodies to put at that position, so you're going to, whether he starts with Cat or he comes off the bench, or, you're going to see some, they mix and match some minutes with Cat. I don't think he's going to play a ton of minutes. So it's not going to be a minute restriction, really. It's just naturally not going to be like he's going to be available if they need him to play, 38, 40 minutes in, one night.
How many minutes you think, if you had to guess?
If I had to guess with that lineup that they have, I mean, I would say probably about somewhere 22, 24 minutes. Okay. And it's not even because of restrictions, because they have enough on the front line to mix and match with other people to distribute the minutes so that he doesn't play a ton of minutes. I mean, that's not going to be the goal, but that's just what's going to happen.
Am I the only one taking into account? Am I being too logical about it, or like taking into account paying someone $20 million or $18 million on an extension and they're playing 20 minutes a game? And can you get someone cheaper who may not be as good as Mitch, but because of the savings, it may help you overall? Am I like off base with that line of thinking?
No, but the point is, if you're going to do that, you use Robinson as fungible salary so you can get somebody else in the door.
Right.
You don't want to do that and just let him walk, right?
No, we're not talking about that.
So if you're going to, there's nothing wrong with that way of thinking, and maybe that person is already in the building in Jerrell Hukporti. We don't know, but maybe they are. So just an example. I'm just saying. So there are players. He's not Mitchell Robinson, but he can probably do enough Mitchell Robinson things for 18 to 20 minutes a night, which is what Robinson has typically played in his career anyway, right? And as far as I'm concerned, I'm one of those who wants to see Towns at the 5. So if you want Towns at the 5, I think then that line of thinking makes a lot of sense. So, you know, and I think in a lot of ways for roster development and flexibility moving forward, I think you might actually need to move on from Mitch, which is weird because he's the longest tenured guy. He's actually been here since before Leon Rose got here. You know, he's been with the team for 7 seasons. There's not a lot of Knicks in the team history that have been around the team and survived as many regimes as Robinson has. So, you know, so obviously there's a lot to like about him as a player. Obviously he has his weaknesses, right? If he's not an elite player by any stretch of the imagination. His offensive rebounding is an elite skill. And I think his shot blocking could be an elite skill, but I don't think that's his, you know, I think that his future may wind up elsewhere, but don't think of it as an either or proposition. I've seen this a lot. It's not the choice between keeping Bridges or Robinson. We can keep both of them. We're probably going to be over the second apron next year regardless. So you can have them both and sign them both to extensions if you want to do that. I'm not advocating for any position. I'm just saying that the Knicks, it's not like the Knicks can only keep one of them. And it's not a situation like the Isaiah Hartenstein situation where someone else can pay more than we can. That's not the case with either of these guys. We have Robinson's bird rights, and I'm pretty sure that we have Bridges as well. And so we can sign these guys to larger contracts and probably pay them more than anybody else can. So from those standpoints, we can keep both of these players, but that locks you in a lot of ways, because if you sign them, then you're over the second apron, then you have all of the limitations that come with that. And you guys understand those already. I don't need to go over those again. And that does make team building more difficult. So if you're going to go that mile, you kind of want to be sure that you don't need much more tweaking with your roster. It's not impossible to make moves. It's just a lot harder. So you want to make sure if you're locking yourself into that you're, you know, that you're ready. And I think that's why the Knicks have done such a intentional job of straddling that second apron, going right up to it, but not going over it, because we don't want that clock to start yet for the team. And I kind of am wondering if the current construction with our starting 5 is not going to be the one that ends up being the championship core. I kind of feel like maybe we need to make one more move, even if it's just a lateral move that kind of brings in a player that kind of makes more sense with the guys that we have around, whatever that may be. I think that Brunson is probably the only piece that they're not really willing to touch. You know, they traded for Towns, but I could definitely see them. Like if Towns was what it took to get Giannis, for instance, I don't know that the Knicks would be like, no way I'm doing that deal. If it was I have to give up Brunson to get Giannis. I'm not sure the Knicks are doing that deal because then they don't have a point guard, right? So they're you know, and Keith Turner makes a good point. The pairing of Cat and Brunson isn't ideal, and so maybe you have to move on from one of them to, you know, to move forward. I don't know what the right pairing is, but you know, maybe they find that somewhere along the line on the trade market. They've certainly proved to be creative, let's just say, with their deal making, even if everything hasn't always worked out to their benefit.
Yeah, for sure. D. Grant, that siren was the Mitchell Robinson theme song, and any other injured player on the Knicks. That's the theme song, the ambulance.
The Anthony Davis special.
Right. I'm kind of surprised by this comment. Bottom line, this roster is getting too expensive to keep, and you're not in contention just yet either. Wow.
We're 6 games away from the NBA Finals. That's not contention.
I think the Knicks are squarely, even if Indiana didn't have injuries and Boston didn't have injuries, I still think the Knicks are in contention for a championship, but with those injuries, even more so, right? Squarely in contention. Tom Thibodeau lost his job because, you know, other reasons as well, but some of it is probably that, you know, at least Dolan thought they should have he's a little impulsive in my opinion, thought that, you know, they should have beat Indiana and went to the NBA Finals. So if we don't believe it as a fan base, the Knick organization definitely believes that this is a championship contending team. All right. Ivory 10, Mitch is going into his prime.
He is?
Yeah. Just because you didn't win it doesn't mean you're not ready. Like Boston was a championship contending team for years before they won the championship. Milwaukee was a championship contending team for years before they won it. Right? So just because you lost doesn't, you know, it's part of the process. Like this idea that you're going to just put a team together and in 1 year win a championship, it just doesn't work that way. It's a process. The Knicks are contenders, but you know, they have to get better in some areas, and hopeful. And part of it is schemes, you know, and hope. And the Knicks are hopeful that, you know, Mike Brown will change that. This is a good question. Do you think the reason we lost in the playoffs, did we correct that problem, or do we still need to address that? Where should we look at the change with the new? That is a great question, right? How much of the problem, it could be a little bit of both, was, you know, the coach and just changing the coach fixes it, and how much of it was roster issues that still remain despite the fact that we have a new coach. Ajay, any thoughts on that?
I think we made huge steps in fixing and taking care of our roster issues. The addition of Yabusele and Clarkson are tremendous, and I think we said that we don't know who. And they may be adding. I mean, they have enough to add like a vet minimum. We don't know who that's gonna be, but right now you have a bench of. I mean, you have 9 players you know are gonna be in the rotation, like solid 9, and they're looking for a 10th one. So I think
I'm looking for a 10th one.
I
said they are looking for a 10th one.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that takes care of what the majority of our issues. You know, we don't know. You know, to Tom Thibodeau's credit, maybe if he had the roster that we have now, maybe his rotation wouldn't have been as short. You know, maybe, you know, if he had a guy like Yabusele or Jordan Clarkson on the bench, maybe the guys, you know, the starters wouldn't have to play that many minutes. We don't know that, you know. So I think they're making huge effort in addressing what were the obvious issues from last season, or from why we lost in the playoffs, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're true. I agree with that. The bench. I also think I'm hopeful that Mike Brown will bring a bit more offensive creativity, fluidity to the offense, so that when we play those really good defensive teams, we don't get bogged down. Um, but in all fairness, the Indiana did that to OKC as well, right? With Shea as well. You have a really, really good defensive team. Yeah, your offense doesn't look as good. But I'm hoping that the offensive schemes are better, kind of help Brunson out, get more people involved, so the Knicks are harder to guard. And I'm also interested to see what is he going to do scheme wise defensively with Brunson and Cat. And hopefully that helps us as well. Anything you want to add, Geoff?
Yeah, I think we are closer. I think that experience matters. We've now been to the Eastern Conference Finals.
That too.
And most of those rotation guys are back. Are we a perfect squad? No. Do we need a backup point guard? Yes. But I think that position will be addressed. Do we need to shuffle some deck chairs to improve even further? Maybe so. But look, guys like Mitchell Robinson and Mikal Bridges have value. It's not like that they're these, these contracts like with that are $50 million for a guy who can't play anymore, right? This isn't Allen Houston on his bum knees from, you know what I mean, when he got paid $100 million. These are guys who are quality players who you can get other quality players for if you need to, and the hope is that Mike Brown can maximize the players in a way that Tom Thibodeau didn't. And I think everybody who watched last year's Knicks team would agree, even if you like Tom Thibodeau, they didn't maximize their talents. There was something that was off in that locker room, and it was evident. I mean, they had to have players-only meetings every other day, it seemed, just to kind of get past Boston in the playoffs. But let's not forget, before Tatum got hurt, we were up in that series, and we were winning with 3 minutes to go. We were up 9. So I think we beat Boston even if Tatum doesn't go down. Maybe that's I can't prove that statement, obviously, but I think we beat Boston anyway. And remember, we beat Boston by 40 points in the game clincher. He isn't 40 points better. He'll make them better, but I think and I don't know that they blow us out in the previous game either. I think they kind of rallied around not having their star, which got them that extra game to begin with. So I think we beat Boston anyway, and Indiana outplayed us. There's no question about that. But you don't collapse in game 1, that series may turn out different also, right? Because if you don't collapse in game 1, you don't have a hangover in game 2. Could be looking, and then if you're up 2-0, you win that series, right? If it's 1-1, you may win that series. It's that we're down 0-2, and then you've got to beat an outstanding Pacers team 4 out of 5. That's hard for anybody to do. So, I understand if and buts were candy and nuts, it'd be a Merry Christmas for everyone. I get that. You can do that with a lot of people's runs. I'm just saying we're right there. That's the only point that I'm making, is that you're very close. And I think there's an easy argument to be made that Clarkson and Yabusele improve our bench. Now, defensively, I have questions. I have lots of questions defensively. I think that is one of the big things we're going to have to answer. But maybe the answer is we're so good on the other side of the court that we can be what we were last year, a rather average defensive team, and still, compete for the championship in a Denver chicken nugget kind of style. That's the hope. I mean, that to me, that's where you got to go. Or maybe we get in someone here, and I'm not advocating for this necessarily, but maybe we get in someone like a Ben Simmons, who's a really quality defender that you can put on the court with some of these other guys. And he's got defensive versatility 1 through 5, and he solves some of those issues. There's a lot of things that could happen between now and training camp and the end of the season. But let's not lose sight of the fact that it's a very good basketball team that won 50 games last year. They've got a proven head coach, whether you like him or not. Mike Brown has shown that he can coach in this league, and he's coached under some of the best minds in this league as far as the offense is concerned, Popovich, Kerr, et cetera. And so, look, they're not that far away. No, if you're talking about no Tatum, you're talking about no Halliburton, you're talking about a Milwaukee team that is in transition. They've changed how their roster looks. Cleveland looks awfully difficult, but they've had their postseason struggles as well. And have a label of being soft when it comes to the postseason. So Atlanta is better, but look, there's no time in history where you just roll to an NBA championship like that. It's the hardest thing to do is to win that thing. So it's going to be every round. You may have a round or two where you're really good and you beat up on the other team, but you're going to have to beat some good teams at some point, somewhere along the line. And we're capable of doing that. And I just think that if we maximize even the talent of the players that we have now, we can get further than what we are last year. And I don't see that there's any reason why we can't do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it's definitely schematics, putting the players in the best position to perform. I do think that's important, but players got to perform too.
Yeah.
Regardless. I mean, Indiana went to the NBA Finals. Halliburton hit 4 game-winning shots. Where would the Knicks be if a player on our team hit 4 game-winning shots? So schemes are important. Coaching adjustments are important. No doubt, not about it. Having a bench, playing the bench performing is important. But player performances is important. And it's not always, to your point, it's hard to win a championship. Sometimes it's the coach coming up in the moment with an adjustment, playing the 9th or 10th guy over the 4th guy because, you just got an inkling, and, that this will work. And that guy goes in and gives us a boost like campaign. And I think it was game 1 against Detroit. Or game 2. But sometimes it's the coach being dead in the water, not really knowing what else to do, and a player pops 50. You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you're gonna win different ways in the playoffs. Players, coaches, it's not just maximizing the schemes. Everything has to be perfect and maximized for the play. Sometimes you gotta outplay your offensive line. I'm sorry. Sometimes you're gonna have to do that. I'm not saying for the entire playoff, but sometimes things get stuck. It's nothing else to do, and a player has to step up and take you home. And we have those type of players.
Well, Greg Popovich was close to another title, didn't put Tim Duncan back in the game, gave up an offensive rebound to Miami, led to a wide open 3 to Ray Allen in the corner. They lost the game in overtime and lost the series. Otherwise, I think they would have had a 3-peat. So, and Greg Popovich, one of the greatest coaches arguably of all time. I don't think anybody disputes that, right? And so I'm just saying, even, players make the wrong decision, coaches make the wrong decisions, stuff is going to happen. You have to be fortunate, but fortune is where opportunity and preparation meet, right? And so we have the opportunity. Now we have to be prepared. And so that's what this whole process is about, is getting us prepared to have a good regular season, win 50-plus games, get a good seed, and then roll it out in the playoffs and see what happens. That's what we all signed up for. Look, that was the 90s, right? Every year, the Knicks were a second-round team. That was expected when we were growing up. At least it was to me. Like, if the Knicks lost in the first round, I was like, what's wrong with the Knicks? Fire everybody. We went through a period of absolute incompetence beginning in around 2000 or 2001, and then we that extended really, with the exception of a couple of mellow seasons in early 2012, 2013. that extended all the way until Leon Rose got in charge. And since Rose has been here, four postseason appearances in 5 years, and second round in each of the last 2 years. Made it to the finals, Eastern Conference Finals. So they're getting there, right? This front office knows how to build a competent winner, and I think that one of the things that Mike Brown does is he maintains that level of competence that Thibodeau brought, that floor of competence. I don't know if he has the ceiling to get us over the top, but I do know that he's going to have a floor there. And Brunson gives us a floor, right? Brunson is at least a second round of the playoffs guy to me. I think if you have a roster with a healthy Brunson on it, he's going to take you there because he's that good. That's what I've seen. Like I'm not making this up or pulling it out of nowhere. This is that's his track record for the last 4 seasons. And so I'm going to go with that. If he's healthy, he's going to take us at least to the second round. And then we have to make sure that we do what we can to get to the third round and get to the fourth round.
Right. Ajay, anything you want to add to anything that's been set up to this point?
One quick thing, Geoff. I remember Tim Duncan was on the floor, man, when Ray Allen, when Chris Bosh got that rebound. Maybe my memory. No,
go check it out.
No, I don't. I believe you. Because I remember that I was pissed.
Look, my son is a huge Spurs fan. He reminds me of it every chance he gets. He rants about it. So
I'm not a huge.
He was not on the floor. Trust me.
I just dislike Miami Heat that much.
I want to get to this comment on Mitchell Robinson by Ivory 10, who's a big Mitchell Robinson fan. After seeing the defense totally fall apart last year without Mitch, you have the same people talking about replacing the guy because he cost $20 million, a third of what a superstar costs. I guess my question for you, Ivory 10, is are you taking into account Mitchell Robinson's injury history? Because if we're talking about a Mitchell Robinson that's not injured, who doesn't have an injury history, I would agree with you. Because you're going to get that defense every single game. You're going to get it over the course of a season. You're going to get it in the playoffs. What's his name from Dallas? He signed a $54 million contract. If you want to say Mitchell Robinson is in that class and he should get something comparable, I think it was Gafford.
Daniel Gafford. You're right.
Daniel Gafford, that's fine. But again, once you put in the injury history and the risk, to me, that changes the equation. Am I paying $20 million for someone with an injury history who might not give me 60 games a year over the course of that contract? You have to take that into consideration. So I guess my question is, with your statement, are you taking that into consideration, or are you okay paying $20 million to someone who may play 45 games a season? Right? This is not just about, I think there needs to be a little more nuance to the discussion around Mitch. And I think that's what we've been trying to do. It's not just about what he can do on the defensive end, and we're not trying to pay him. It's about the injury. We ain't even talking about the limitations in terms offensive limitations and free throw shooting. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about injury history and him possibly not being on the floor to do what you're paying him to do. So I guess my question is, Ivory 10, is that something you're taking into account? Because for me, I think that's a fair question.
So I think frame it like this. If the durability of Bridges and Robinson were switched, if Robinson was a guaranteed 82 game per season guy, never missed a game, I don't think anybody on this panel and most people in Knicks Nation would have much issue paying him 15, 18, up to $20 million. I don't think that they would.
Right.
I think that they would recognize his production on the floor and see that he's valuable. So that's a massive deal. The number one ability is availability. I mean, it's especially when you're talking about chasing a championship ring. When you miss 50, 60 games, that can cost you seeding. That can cost you home court advantage. That can do a lot of things to, and extend players more minutes than you want to play them. There's a lot of problems with that. And those games that he's out, he's not helping the team at all. Whereas if you have someone who can do 80% of what Mitch can do, whatever that is, but he's on the court the entire season, is that 80% better than the 100% for the 30 plus, 40 plus games that you get out of Mitch? That's a valid question. And this is coming from someone who loves Mitch. Mitchel Robinson, my favorite Knick. He has been since the day that we drafted him. I've loved him. I saw him that first time in Summer League. I think he blocked a three-pointer or some crazy thing. I saw him do a move where he went from like coast to coast on like 2 dribbles. I was like, man, this guy's an amazing athlete, and he had his troubles, but he signed for pennies on the dollar. And during those seasons, he was like the one bright spot for us. I mean, we had, I don't want to go into the names. We've already, Anthony D already gave me my PTSD. I don't want to go through the laundry list of scrubs that we had, but he has his flaws, but if he was healthy, it's a different story. But he's not, and that's not one season. That's his entire career, and part of it is the way that he plays. He's on the floor a lot, and when you're a big man crashing to the floor all the time, it's hard on your body, and it's hard for bigs a lot of times. Yao Ming had foot trouble, all-star player. I mean, Mitch is not Yao Ming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not conflating the two in any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying injuries to big guys. Greg Oden never saw his potential because of his injuries. He was top 5 pick, superstar. So, it's
Sam Bowie, the most famous.
Sam Bowie. Now you're going back a little bit, Ajay. I remember Sam Bowie.
Yeah. We'll see what the Knicks do. I think this is a tough decision for them. It's a tough decision. I don't know if Hukporti is ready. Who else is out there that you can bring in to play behind Towns? Do you roll the dice that Mitchell Robinson is past his injury history and you sign him to an extension? Do you trade him because his trade value is probably higher now than it's ever been, given his showing in the playoffs? The Knicks are in a tough spot. They're going to have to make that decision.
But you know what? That's what Leon Rhodes is here for. That's why he has that team.
He's big bucks, right?
That's why we brought him here, is to be able to make those decisions and maximize not just the talent on this ball club, but maximize the production of this ball club. And I think that's one of the reasons Tom Thibodeau is not here, because he didn't maximize the production based on the talent that he had. And if you want to give some of the blame to Leon Rhodes for that, I think that's perfectly fair.
I think so. I think so. I think so too. I mean, people bandied that about, not maximize. Cat had his best year under Tom Thibodeau. Josh Hart had his best year under Tom Thibodeau. Now, were there some things Tom Thibodeau could have done better? Yes, I think he could have leaned into them 5-out lineups.
Tried it. He barely played it. We hardly saw it at all.
With you, Geoff. I'm not arguing.
No, I'm just saying that. Oh yeah. Not even lean into. Lean into kind of implies that he did it. He really didn't do it at all.
He should have. He should have mixed it up. But people talk as if the offense wasn't maximized at all. And I don't think that's the case. Or Cat, we want to maximize Cat as if Cat didn't have the best season of his of his NBA career. However, I agree. There's even more we can get out of Cat. I agree with that. There's even more we can get out of the Cat Brunson pairing. And there's even more we can get out of the offense, particularly if we decide to go 5-out, if not all the time. some of the time, but I don't want to make it seem like it was zero. You know, we got some out of it, but there is more that, you know, that can be had. And hopefully I'm confident we're going to get that, you know, with Mike Brown. But I do want to, you know, be fair. There was somebody made a comment about Mitch started to get injured when Tom Thibodeau came. Mitch didn't even play enough games to get injured. I mean, to you know, to have wear and tear anyway. And that we owe Mitch for the contract. We paid Mitch already.
$60 million.
Yeah. So he, you know, I don't think we have to continue to pay him for the cheap contract he had in the beginning. All right. Anything else?
Thanks for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure. It's so much fun. Thank you to the chat, always keeping us on our toes, keeping us real, asking great questions, having diverse opinions. That the show doesn't happen without y'all. Ajay, I love the green room, brother.
Don't change it.
Don't change it. He's the incredible Ajay. He's upping his gamma radiation dosage.
Guys, just so you know, Geoff is usually right, and he was right about that rebound, because you know Boris Diaw might have been the one on the floor at that time. So Geoff's always right. He's got a great memory. I don't remember those things, so
I don't remember the important stuff, but I remember that Tim Duncan wasn't on the floor.
Just letting y'all know. I could remember who else would have been on the floor, and I remember Diaw was part of that team.
Yeah. At some point, we gotta. I'm trying to decide. We could do that. We could do it later. Whether or not we should continue to go 2 weeks, 2 times a week, or just go once a week. The news is pretty slow. Right about now, we got the coach.
We play by ear, Queen. If we feel like rocking, we rock.
Okay.
I think we should go down to one show a week unless something happens. Like, you know what I mean? If we have a big news story or something, then we can go on Monday. But if not, let's just stick to the Thursday show. Because Jerrell can't usually come on Monday nights anyway. He usually has to work. So, and it's a better show when he's on the panel. I love his takes. They add so much. They fill in the gaps really, really well, in my opinion. So I think, you know, till we get closer to training camp, which not going to be as far as you think. It'll be here before we know it. I know that. It always kind of sneaks up on us, and then we blink, and then it's, you know, April.
Yeah. I'll do a layout of shows, and I'll go back to last year and do a layout and see. But I'm tending to agree with you to go on Thursdays unless something happens, or if I go through it and I'm plotting it out and like, wow, once a week, we're not going to be able to, because sometimes it is good, like for that Monday show, to just take one topic and do a deep dive as opposed to like a weekly roundup. But I agree. If we don't have enough, I don't want to force it. Yeah. All right. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the replay gang. Shout out to the silent listeners. Geoff, I appreciate you holding me down. Ajay, I appreciate you as well. Jerrell,
for having me, Queen.
The same. And we might be back Monday, but for sure we will be back Thursday.
And chat, don't forget to hit the like button, even if it's on the way out. We appreciate it if you do.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate you. I see you, Coach, sneaking in
at under the wire. He pulled the Lord Scientist. He just snuck in under the wire. You're probably gonna ask if we have the phones up.
Until next time, family.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.
What?